Atheist Nomads, episode 415. What is death?
The podcast you're about to listen to includes cursing and talking about hoo-haws. Please be advised.
Welcome to another episode of Atheist Nomads. I hope everybody had a good 4th of July. Oh, yes, and I'm joined by Lauren.
Hello. I was about to say, hello.
And I hope
Or the show is here.
And I hope everybody had a good 4th of July. It was,
I hope everybody had a fire-free 4th of July.
yeah, the nice relaxing time that actually makes it feel like it's been like 2 months since I recorded.
Yeah. I made it a goal of mine over this last weekend to have one day where Dustin didn't have to lift a finger. He was bored. He was drunk.
And injured.
And injured.
So I wouldn't have been able to lift, some fingers.
Right. Yes, that's true. Not just a muscle cramp.
Muscle cramp that has continually moved back and forth across my shoulder.
Yeah.
Oh,
you did feed the dogs, and you did one other thing. I can't remember what you did. Yeah, you didn't have to cook. You didn't have to clean. Oh, you swept.
Mm-hmm.
That was the other thing. Yeah. So I hope you had a nice weekend.
Yeah, it was good.
Good.
Other than the pain.
I mean, yeah, given.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about happier subjects.
Okay.
What's death?
Yes, sounds just peachy.
So if we're going to talk about what is death from the standpoint of it dusting off the degree, of course, we're talking about what do various different peoples believe about death.
Yeah.
So if you go with the old versions of it, you would have Hinduism and Judaism as the old extant beliefs on death. Typical Jewish belief on death is that when you die, you cease to exist.
Okay.
That's the end. It's the hereafter, or it's the here and now, not the hereafter.
Nice.
There are Jews who hope that there is some kind of a heaven in the hereafter, but they don't worry about it much because the focus is on getting God's blessings in your life on earth.
As it should be.
Then there's Hinduism, which is all about the hereafter.
That's true.
Where you are trying to earn points to be reborn as something better.
Right, because we're kind of stuck in jail, and they're trying to get out of jail.
With the ultimate goal being nothingness.
Yes, which is exactly what the Jewish people think.
Nothingness.
Well, it's exactly what I think.
Nothingness.
Sarah.
Yeah.
Sense a theme.
Buddhism, Taoism, and the other Shintoism, the other Eastern religions have various, and Jainism, of course, have various adaptations of karma and reincarnation, and the ultimate goal being escaping the cycle of rebirth and either being reabsorbed back into the universe, effectively becoming nothing, or just ceasing existence.
I always found that interesting because that means that there is some kind of innate thought that there were previous lives.
Yeah.
That is not a natural thought for me to have. Deja vu, I guess.
My guess is that it's people trying to figure out what the hell their little kids are talking about.
Either that or they're trying to figure out why do bad things happen to good people, and it must be because of some other outside force.
And if you combine those two things together and add in a little bit of an element of trying to figure out how to control people.
There you go.
Oh, yeah. We'll go ahead and punish you here, but if you keep doing that stuff we're telling you not to do, you might be reborn as a cat, or even worse, a woman.
Dun, dun, dun!
So then, all right, if we look at the Abrahamic religions, Islam does believe in a heaven. When good Muslims die, they will go to heaven and be at the right hand of Allah, and if they die as martyrs, they'll be given 70 virgins, and if you're bad, you go to the bad place.
They don't have a name for it?
They do, but it's a pretty nondescript.
Just not good.
It's somewhere in between the typical Christian hell and the Adventist view that the wicked dead just get annihilated.
Oh, okay. I like to think of it as more as, are you stuck in line at the DMV or are you stuck in line at the grocery store? DMV is hell, by the way.
Oh, okay.
It sucks.
Yep. So then there's the typical Christian view, which of course would have started out in the early church with the Jewish view of death. And
let there be nothing.
And in Judaism, there is an element of the, Abraham's bosom, going to Abraham's bosom, which, what?
A hug? Is that all they want? Is a hug?
It's not very well described, though. There's some vague.
Going to someone's bosom is a hug.
Yeah, there's some vague
sweet.
whatevers. Yeah.
Where do you want to go? I just want a hug. I just want to be cradled lovingly, maybe pet a little.
Then you
have be a cat or a lapdog, basically.
Then you have the Apostle Paul, or a
ghostwriter,
counterfeit, writing on behalf, claiming to be the Apostle Paul, writing about Jesus returning to earth, and all eyes seeing, and the dead in Christ will rise first, and then the living saints will rise up after them to meet him in the sky to go to heaven, which suggests the belief that the dead are dead, not in heaven.
Yeah, they're just bodies.
Otherwise,
bodies. They're just dead.
Because the pretty typical current
Limbo.
Christian view of or interpretation of that is, along with Jesus is all of the dead saints who come to earth to re-inhabit their bodies to go back up to heaven.
It doesn't say that, though.
No.
What the hell? What the hell? It says
the dead in Christ will rise first, not their souls will come back and reanimate their corpses. No, it's the corpses will rise out of the grave.
Beautified, of course, because
in the twinkling of an eye, all of that. Yeah.
The what?
In the twinkling of an eye, all the corruption will go away and everything will all be beautiful and perfect. And
is that also in the Bible?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought that was just a Santa thing, but okay.
All right. So then enter Gnosticism.
With a G, right?
With the G.
Not Nazism.
No. Gnosticism, the people who believe that they have this hidden knowledge in them, it is in the Christian forms of Gnosticism, was a merging of Christianity and Neoplatonism.
Which is worth more than Neo-Goldism.
Neoplatonism being the pseudo-religion developed in Hellenistic Greece based on the teachings of Plato. In Gnosticism, it has a major emphasis, drawing off of the Platonic thoughts of the spiritual world is more real than the physical world, and the spiritual world is perfect, and the physical world is corrupt and not.
So not only are we living in a simulation, but we're living in like 16-bit simulation.
No. You have a spiritual self that is trapped within your physical self. And the spirit is perfect and pure, and the flesh is evil and wicked.
Yeah, Plato was full of it.
Well, that wasn't necessarily Plato. That was combining Plato and Paul.
Oh, isn't the perfect chair analogy Plato?
Yes.
So yeah, no, he's still full of it.
But you take Plato and you combine that with Paul, who wrote about the spirit is strong, but the flesh is weak. Well, they take that literal to be not my willpower versus, like, clearly that's a metaphor for I want to be a better person than I am, or a metaphor for I'm really because Paul wasn't.
I'm actually just a meat puppet for a tiny perfect soul.
Or more likely, it's that Paul claimed never married and was proud of the fact that he never married. And the spirit is strong, but the flesh is weak probably means he kept getting some.
Well, he's
and then
gay.
Feeling really bad about it.
Prostitutions.
Or he was gay and felt really bad about it. And that when he wrote about men getting it on with one another, he was talking about himself.
Yeah.
But when the Gnostics take that up, they combine the Neoplatonic spiritual world with like Paul's the flesh, or the spirit is strong, flesh is weak, and you have the spirit is pure and the flesh is evil. And
that's a lot of hoops.
That gets merged back into what would become like the proto-Catholic Christianity.
Okay.
You have a spirit and a body.
Yeah, dualism, right?
Dualism.
Wow.
Plato was a dualist. Neoplatonism was dualistic. The Hellenistic world was largely dualistic. And bringing that into Christianity created a very stark line of you have a soul and you have a body. And the soul, being perfect, is immortal.
Right, because immortality is perfect.
Yes.
Whatever.
Because death is imperfect.
Okay.
So the flesh can die, but the spirit can't. Well, if the spirit can't die and it's immortal and immutable, then it has to go somewhere. Thus, you die and go straight to heaven, or you go to hell, or you go to purgatory.
I like the limbo idea.
And limbo for unbaptized babies, like that creates the necessity to have those concepts, because if there is no immortal soul, then there's nothing to worry about. Is this giving you a headache or making your headache worse?
It's so full of bullshit, but the headache is unrelated.
Okay.
It is getting worse, but it is unrelated.
So that's all just tied in.
Like I said, that just seems like a lot of hoops. Where does it say in the Bible that, for example, that there is a soul like it says all of this in, like, I'm assuming Paul?
No.
Is this all just
there is
outside? Okay, because there's a lot of stuff that was taken out of the Bible.
Yeah.
Is this all kind of related to that oral tradition that was lost?
Probably not.
Yeah.
That's
the point that I give up trying.
So the text that dualists, there are texts that dualists read a certain way that non-dualists read more plainly.
Like metaphorically versus literally.
Right. For example, in classical and ancient Hebrew, the word for breath will also be translated into English as soul.
Okay.
So texts in the Old Testament that talk about the soul, life being, God breathed life into Adam, gave him breath, and he became a living person. Well, before that, he would have been a lump of clay, and then God breathing magical breath into him turned him into human flesh and alive.
Right.
Well, that was the soul. God breathed a soul into him. And there are some passages that refer to, like breathing your last breath.
Yeah. Life doesn't begin until the first breath of life.
Yeah.
Or something like that, right?
There's a lot of passages about breath around life, beginning and end of life, talking about breath. Well, dualists read those passages as referring to the soul entering and the soul leaving.
Okay.
So in that first breath, the soul enters the body, and at the last breath, the soul leaves.
Therefore, fetuses are not people.
Except for with the modern...
That's a total...
Which we can all just cover in here because it's all completely related. Doesn't need to be separated out to next week. Which is where the anti-abortion movement had to update that logic to... No, the soul enters the zygote.
Like the egg is a lump of clay and the sperm is the breath or something.
No, it's like at the moment that the sperm fertilizes the egg, the soul joins in.
That's a lot of unaccounted for souls considering how often unknown miscarriages happen, but okay, whatever.
And even just eggs that don't
I like the idea
implant.
of them being, I like the idea of them being recycled, and then you combine the two.
So ensoulment, that's all tied in with that. Anti-abortion arguments had to all be tied in with that. And Catholics were anti-abortion because they believed that God chooses who lives and dies, and thus God should also choose what abortions happen and what don't. And also, if you get an abortion, then obviously that was not sex with the intent of procreation, and that sex is evil.
Right.
And it can only be made not evil by babies.
Babies.
So
the answer is babies.
So then Protestants had to try to justify being anti-abortion and went with, well, the soul really enters the body, not at the first breath, but let's say conception.
Sure. Let's throw that in there. Conception.
Yeah, then any abortion is destroying a human because it's a human if it has a soul.
Well, and I actually kind of get that just from the, like, I don't know how, long ago, but, having carried Kylie, there was no concept of her as a living being until she was born.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a moment where I thought that the fetus had died. or was sick. We went to go do an ultrasound. We found out, no, she was sucking on her toe inside. So the ultrasound showed a little foot going right into her little mouth, and she was just sucking on her foot. I'm like, that right there is almost a personality.
Yeah.
It's not. It was totally random. But there was a part of me that then attributed a certain goofiness to this fetus, which ended up becoming my child. I can see how people can say, oh no, that's that thing that's kicking you.
Yeah, clearly
clearly a soul.
The real human is there.
Yeah.
And then they also use the whole
Her brain
soul
was goo.
and the soul versus not soul. That's also important in why humans have dominion over animals.
Oh, which we are totally like reversing that these days, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
And, slaves.
Except slaves were humans with souls.
Well,
except for the arguments to try to argue that black people weren't really human.
Yeah.
That they were kind of proto-human.
Advanced primates or something? I don't know. I never got into that because obviously.
Although usually they just went with the curse of Cain.
Straight up kooky dukes.
Or the curse of Ham. The curse of Ham.
That sounds delicious.
When Canaan, Ham's son, walked in on...
Not bacon? I mean, come on.
Walked in on Noah naked and brought his uncles to go laugh at his naked grandpa.
Okay, that is a dick move.
And so then Noah woke up and cursed Ham, Canaan's dad.
He woke up?
Yeah, eventually he wakes up, finds out what happened, and then he cursed his son.
While everybody was laughing at him? Well, okay.
He passed out drunk, and so then he curses his son instead of his grandson.
Whatever.
For what his grandson did, and that curse is why black people exist.
We know, as well as anybody, that it's always the parents' fault.
Right. But that curse is why black people exist, and then that's why slavery is okay. It's because they were cursed.
I got it.
It's twisted. Back to death. So that doctrine on what happens when you die, that of course kept getting fleshed out until eventually you got limbo, and then limbo was removed. And it explained purgatory and indulgences, where you're basically creating a pseudo-karma system where you have points to get into heaven. And so you need to earn more points so that you can get into heaven faster.
Right.
And then the Mormons take it even weirder, where the souls are the spirit babies of God and his wife, and then humans have babies to create bodies for God's spirit babies to inhabit.
Right, because where do souls come from?
Right. They answer it as God sex. And then based on how you live your life, the God soul baby that was inhabiting your body, that is you, will either go to the celestial, terrestrial, or one other kingdom, or to the outer darkness. Celestial,
you could probably just
celestial and terrestrial kingdoms, or outer darkness.
Okay.
I think that's what it is. So really convoluted system with all these different layers. And then there are some Christians, most notably Adventists, who went the route of, there's no talk of immortal souls in the Bible. And
so they have the same problem I do.
Yeah, like this.
Go back to the beginning.
And it all just kind of looked like weird bullshit. Like, what's with this whole soul thing? And they also had the belief that the Catholic Church was evil and corrupt. And so if they could attribute it to, well, that's just Catholic corruption, then you can strip it out of Christianity and make a more perfect Christianity. So they stripped out the immortal soul and literal hell and dying and going straight to heaven.
Okay.
And believe that the righteous will be resurrected and go to heaven, and the wicked will be resurrected and shown how they were wrong before they are annihilated.
Nice. But you already died once, so who cares?
Right. So it's weird. They're all weird because what happens when you die? A lot of people like this. A lot of the more not religious type people like to say, we don't know. We do know. Nothing.
Nothing.
You die. You're dead.
Yep.
It's over.
I gain great comfort from that.
I do too.
I think anybody who's ever seen a grandparent or an elderly or even just a young person who has been suffering die and knowing that it's just over is good. Also, of course, people, living life to its fullest, also dying suddenly is sad, but at least they're not in some kind of eternal damnation,
right?
Fire and brimstone hell. I mean, that's messed up.
Well, like when my nephew died at 21 of a drug overdose, every system that believes in an immortal soul would have believed that he was going to hell. Believing that he just stopped existing and that seeing him there on life support with not even brainstem function, he wasn't there.
Yeah.
He was already gone. That was easier to process than is he in hell?
Yeah.
Which the believers in the family were having to deal with.
Yeah.
When my grandparents died, they lived good lives. They completed their lives. It was the end to a good book, and every good book has to have an ending.
It makes you cry.
Yeah.
But there you go.
And again, the believers, even though they believed that they were resting in the grave, waiting for Jesus' soon return.
I hope they're not conscious of that.
No.
That would be awful.
No.
Waiting. Still waiting.
But they seem to have a harder time coming to terms with it than those of us who just believed the story's over.
As somebody who's recently been hospitalized for suicidal ideation, there is a lot of focus on basically what do you think happens after? And it was never the question was brought up. It was never forced or anything like that. This was amongst they call them peers, the other patients, and it was just really nice to just be one of those people who's so sure of there being nothing that there's no point even partaking in the conversation.
Yeah.
Just as comforting as it is for others of faith who think that 100% sure that they're going to heaven to go see their dead family, and that is their driving force in life. And, having that certainty is really nice. Pretty lucky to have that.
Yeah.
I just think I'm right and they're wrong.
Yep. All right, and in the news, we're going to start off with Dr. Anthony Fauci being named the 2021 Humanist of the Year.
Oh, nice.
The American Humanist Association has awarded him the honor for embodying humanist values in the global fight against COVID-19.
Yeah.
And also in recognition of his work for his entire career. For basically forever. He's been the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases at the U.S. National Institute of Health since 1984.
Now, why are infectious diseases and allergies thrown in together? Wouldn't that be more autoimmune?
Yes.
But whatever. Allergies. What? Maybe that was somebody's particular passion. They're like, well, in order to get this money, I have to combine the two things I'm passionate about into one.
So he has overseen the HIV pandemic, the 2009 H1N1 pandemic, Ebola, and COVID-19.
And West Nile.
And West Nile, and Zika.
Yeah, all of them.
He has been at the forefront on all of those. And so he will be being given the award at the American Humanist Association's 80th annual conference, July 24 to 25, which will be an online-only event because of the pandemic.
It's friggin' Fauci.
Yeah, so, yay! And he's accepted the award because he is a secular humanist.
Yeah. Yeah, he never once tried to step on into any... He never once tried to cross a line. There
was one interview, like in 2015. I think it was during the Obama administration.
I meant during the most recent.
Right. No, he hasn't. He never has. And it was an interview, I think, during the Obama administration. He got asked something about, like, don't you believe in God? And his answer was, he skirted around it, basically saying no. Talked about his Catholic upbringing, but at this point, he just tries to live a good life. And
doesn't let other people's beliefs change the way he does medicine.
Yeah.
Which is admirable.
Politico ran an article, nearly a dozen pastors, all in the South, who are afraid to encourage their members to get COVID-19 vaccines.
Afraid?
Yes, that they believe that that would be the right thing to do, that they have all gotten vaccinated themselves, that they would love to encourage their members to get vaccinated, but they are afraid of losing their jobs or losing their members.
Yeah, that's understandable. A lot of people have lost jobs and members and lives.
Yeah. This is Nathan White, a pastor at Liberty Baptist Church in Skipworth, Virginia. He said, quote, "If I put forth effort to push it, I'd be wasting my breath."
Ouch. Well, that sounds familiar, doesn't it?
These are pastors who...
I think they underestimate how much influence they actually have, for one.
I think they recognize how much influence they've lost.
They've had a year to suss it out. They know that they know who's going to listen and who's not.
We've covered articles on this almost exact same thing with QAnon and now just vaccines. And it's the same thing. They know they've lost control of their congregations. They know they've lost their members. They're just trying to hang on to a job and try to keep the community alive, even though they know their community has completely soured.
Yeah.
And that's sad.
Yeah, it is. And frustrating. And what do? It's still their jobs.
Yeah.
You can't just go back to school.
Now, you would hope they would be courageous and all along would have been encouraging their members to do the right thing.
Many have been. And there were a few that suffered the consequences. The majority of them, I think, probably nothing bad happened. So it is, you'd hope, but everybody's life is in a different situation.
Mm-hmm.
You can't blame somebody for quote unquote cowardice when you don't know what their life situation is.
Well, especially considering a lot of them are probably nearing the end of their career and
they really need that pension.
Just trying to wait it out to retirement.
Yeah.
In Canada, they keep finding more mass graves at or near these former residential schools that the Catholic Church ran on the Canadian form of Indian reservations. And in response, the Archbishop Richard Gagnon, who is the president of the Canadian Conference of Catholic Bishops and the Archbishop of Winnipeg, so the top Catholic in Canada, used his sermon to talk about how hard this is on him, these graves being found, and how everybody seems to be coming after him and trying to get him to, like, what are they trying to get him to do? And he even went on to say, quote, he's noticing a lot of blame, a lot of accusations, a lot of exaggeration, a lot of false ideas. And also, quote, you know something? There's a persecution happening here. There's a persecution happening here. End quote.
Oh my God. Same old, same old. I mean, I get the frustration when something happened before your time.
Mm-hmm.
What are you expected to do? You're expected to own it, apologize, and start making reparations. You're not supposed to just play the victim.
As the head of the organization.
But he doesn't have the ability to do that. Pope probably hasn't given him permission.
Right. Or the Canadian Conference of Catholic Bishops probably hasn't given him permission.
Yeah, because once a generation has gone by, nobody's going to own up to anything. There's no obligation there.
What their responses should be as the current heads of the organization is to acknowledge and apologize for the errors of their organization.
Yeah.
That's not hard to do. That shouldn't be personal.
It was the third one that I mentioned that they're scared of. It's the reparations.
Yeah.
As rich as the Catholic Church is, they can't afford that. They can't afford to reach out to every family that was affected by that and apologize.
Or compensate.
Yeah. It's the same thing people have with African American ex-slaves. You can't... The reparations don't make sense. That was generations ago. That wasn't our fault. It's like, no, it was our system's fault. The system is still corrupt and messed up.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't admit to the problem, apologize, and promise reparations, whether that reparation is money, which is not very often, more likely it's more systemic change in how things are handled.
Yeah.
Until you do that, you're always going to be to blame.
That's where you get into like truth and reconciliation commissions
Yeah.
like Rwanda and South Africa did.
Yeah. You need to admit to the world, say this is never going to happen again, and this is what we're doing to make sure.
Reparations would be where you actually take money from the rich white people and give it to the poor black people.
Right. Affirmative action.
No, reparations would be, it means cash.
Oh, okay.
It means cash.
Oh, I thought it was a more generic term for making it up to somebody.
No, when there's talk of reparations, it is cash payments.
Kind of lowbrow, but all right, whatever works.
If you're wanting to lift a demographic that has been systemically kept in poverty, out of poverty, cash is the only answer to that.
Right. It's a lot harder when you're dealing with young women and their children who died.
Reparations on that is, yeah.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen. Okay, anyway.
Yeah, it should. It absolutely should happen. But yeah. And in the U.S., some new court records have shown that the FBI infiltrated a Bible study group in Virginia after the January 6th siege and invasion of the U.S. Capitol.
They picked up on the chatter.
Well, there was one guy that an agent kept talking to and watching, and then they followed him.
Mr. Big Mouth.
And joined his Bible study where they talked about practicing making bombs, about surveilling the U.S. Capitol.
Wow.
Preparing for another attack on the Capitol.
Yeah.
And secession from the United States.
Aw, with the little Bible study. Whatever. It's funny, Bible studies oftentimes don't have anything to do with the Bible.
No.
For we are book club. Bubble is a great podcast, by the way.
And soon to be movie.
Bubble. Look it up.
So yeah, this has been found out because the FBI, they laid out a 14-page statement that was filed in court to support the arrest of the head of this group, Phi Duong, who goes by Monkey King and Jim.
Jim. Okay.
Now, it'd be nice if Bible studies just focused on, studying the Bible, not insurrection, but yeah,
Sounds like a neckbeard anime nerd that's gone mad.
And this one I just have to cover because, I just have to.
Wait. Did you say the guy's name was Duong?
Phi is the first name.
Okay.
F-I. Last name is Duong.
Okay, sorry.
And former President Trump has filed a lawsuit against Google, Twitter, and Facebook, claiming that he's the victim of censorship.
Of course.
But it's not a personal lawsuit. It's a class action lawsuit.
Okay. Where everybody who supports him has also been censored?
Where everyone who supports him has been denied access to his content and thus been wronged.
But not censored.
And that
I see.
They had censored him.
Yes.
Because they censored him, it denied these people. Because he's having... you have to make
He's been kicked off of all the major platforms.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, he has been censored because he was spouting dangerous things.
Right. And censorship in the United States is perfectly legal as long as it's not being done by the U.S. government.
So he can sue away. It's just not going to do him any good.
That's why he's doing it as a class action lawsuit to bring in a class of people that was harmed by this censorship.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
The ego on this man is just insane.
And in feedback, in response to why do bad things happen to good people, from Alliance for Abuse Prevention, which is at ServeAlliance on Twitter, we got, quote, I have asked this for years. That and why a loving God would allow such pain, horror, and destruction, to which I found in my years as a Christian to never hear an acceptable response until I left and began my deconstruction. Those previous beliefs kept me bound. End quote.
Yeah, that seems to be the big moral question.
It is something that it is amazing how a question that is so difficult can further trap people in Christianity.
Yeah.
Or how there's enough else to trap people that such an obvious gaping hole keeps people trapped.
That's what she said. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's funny to me that the big question of morality isn't how do you be a good person. Everybody tries to be a good person. You always you at least you start out trying, and then you fall into survival mode. And everybody's definitions of that is different. But why do bad things happen to good people is like, that is deeply unsettling.
Yeah.
I'm glad we discussed it.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope other people got some feedback to give us on it, because I would love to hear some more opinions.
Now, interestingly, the impetus for, or inspiration for talking about that last week for Dustin Off the Degree was the show that we're currently watching when Kylie's sleeping and we're not camping or working on the podcast, which is Lucifer.
Yeah.
It's on Netflix and is a hilarious take on it's a crime drama. It's
a classical Bruckheimer style CIS, NCIS, all that stuff. It's the same guy who produces all of these shows with just this little biblical twist to it.
Right. And some definitely not biblical twist in it. And it's really fun to pick up on, wait, that's not right. And okay, that's interesting. And I'm really glad they covered that. And
that's a good twist on that. Yeah.
And the hero of the story is Lucifer, as in the devil. And there's angels, and it gets, it's fun. I've been really enjoying it.
I think A Good Place is still a better
absolutely.
lesson on why bad things happen to good people than...
but there is a point where I think it's, if I remember correctly, it was he says, and that's why bad things happen to good people, or something like that.
Yeah.
Then it's like, that'd be a good one to cover.
Yeah.
So anyway, we don't have any new patrons. If you want to support the show, you can find out how at atheistnomads.com/donate. If you want to contact us, you can use the contact form or the SpeakPipe button on the website, or just send us an email at feedback@atheistnomads.com. And until next week, remember, not all those who wander are lost. Thank you for listening to another episode of Atheist Nomads. You can find show notes and contact information at atheistnomads.com. Follow us on Twitter at Atheist Nomads, and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/atheistnomads. Please subscribe to the show in iTunes, Stitcher, or your podcatcher of choice, and while you're there, feel free to leave us a review. Theme music is courtesy of Sturdy Fred. Until next time, this has been the Atheist Nomads.